the whole world is moving in unison. It seems to make no difference whether you're in a first world country or third world country or however you want to describe it. Everybody's doing the same thing, and it kind of reminds me of what we saw in COVID. Like overnight, it seemed like every country in the world was doing masking mandates, and the same language was being used, or why they're doing it, and it all happened within a few days. And it was like going out to your lawn the morning after a rain and seeing that the lawn is covered with mushrooms. They all came up at the same time, and the day before, why, none of them were there. And it was I remember seeing this as a boy thinking, where did those mushrooms come from? I didn't see them all year, and all of a sudden here they are, and the whole lawn is covered with mushrooms. The reason I mention it is because it's sort of like that. We see the whole world covered with this mushrooming message. In this case, we're talking about central bank digital currencies. All at once, the significance of that is that those mushroom spores were always there. The real hardcore significance of this fact is that we have to realize this banking fraternity is truly a fraternity or an industry or a cabal or whatever you want to call it, depending on your mood. It's truly global, and they do work together in a highly coordinated fashion. So nothing is by accident, and these decisions that are being implemented today were made decades ago, and the plans have been in process for a long time. The spores for the mushroom, in other words, have been in place for a long time. And now the signal has been given, let's bring it up to the surface so everybody can see it. And now we call it a crisis. But in fact, the crisis started decades ago. It started pretty much with the formation of central banks. When you combine central banks, which are essentially private banking institutions, you go into partnership between a private banking institution and the government, which has the power coercion of law. You've got a creature there that is a pretty dangerous creature, because you've got people who are controlling the money supply, and that means they control just about everything, because if you have the ability, the legal authority to create money out of literally nothing except the promise to pay it back, you can create any amount of money that you want, and with that huge flow of cash, you're able to buy up politicians. You just buy them up. And that most of them, unfortunately, I have to say, most of them are for sale, or for rent, or for lease. And we come to the amazing conclusion that for a long time we've been living in a system where, although the mushrooms were not on the surface, they were not far from the surface. And the field of mushrooms looks like this. It's that the world is now in the hands of the banking institutions. And instead of governments regulating the banks are now regulating the governments. And this is, come to this realization, it's a very shocking thing to think that actually could happen, but it's been in place, in my view at least, for a long, long time. So when I think about the so-called banking crisis that everybody's talking about, I realize that it is a crisis, but it's been with us for a long time. We're just now beginning to see the mushrooms come up, and we can see the impact of it and how it might really change our lives in the very near future, so that we no longer have freedom of choice in the market. We will not be able to buy and sell without permission from this cabal. I think it's probably a good name for it. So that's how I look at it. It's not so much the details of who is doing what today, what the latest announcement was, because it's all more of the same, just moving constantly and steadily toward that goal, which they have talked about for decades and decades. That goal of a cashless society where the individual citizens no longer have money. We used to think that money was our money. We could put it in our pocket, put it in our coffee can, bury it, or put it in a mattress or something. We could put it in our pockets. No, in a cashless society, we have nothing to put in our pockets. It's all digital. Of course, we have digital money now, but we still also have, in addition to digital money, we have actual currency, which we can consider our own. But where we're headed, and they've talked about it for a long, long time. Where we're headed now, and you can see it very clearly on the grass, is nobody will have cash. There'll be no such thing as cash, which means it's not our money. We don't own it. We'll be allowed to use numbers, and they'll give them a name. They'll allow us to call it a dollar or whatever they allow us to call it, but it's not going to be the same thing. And the amount of those that we have will be allocated to us. It will not be earned by us. would be allocated to us based on our social record and our political attitudes, so that those who are cooperative with the cabal will live pretty well. And those who don't, like I am, are not going to live too well, and probably not you either. In summary, I would say that the crisis has been here for a long time, and we're just now beginning to see what looks like the beginning of the final stage in that crisis. Well, yes, they can track us, but they're, the Internet of Things and the whole development rollout of 5G technology will elevate the ability to track us by a factor probably of 100. I'm just picking that number in range, but it's a significant factor. They'll know what our heartbeat is. Because they'll track us from cell phones and things which can monitor a certain electronic or electromagnetic field in our bodies and things like that. They'll track when we blink an eye. They'll know everything about us. They'll even know our moods. They'll know when we're thinking about objecting, even though we might say something, they'll know when we're not telling the truth. So it's the ultimate form of tracking. Well, the so what part is that as long as you are not making waves and causing opposition to the program of the ruling elite, why, you'll do okay, because they need you to work and produce whatever you produce for the system. But the minute the AI detects something or patterns of performance on your part that rings a bell, then they'll suddenly look at you very closely and decide whether or not you deserve to continue to even exist. Because if they want you out of the way, they'll think of ways, or your AI systems will think of ways to get you out of the picture. In other words, to eliminate you from the surface of the earth. And it might be that they want you to go in and get another shot of some kind of a vaccine, which is going to be or something like that. I'm just picking that at random. If the future can be judged at all by the past, we know that the way they have always operated in the past is to gradually consolidate their organizational structure by gaining control of the smaller units and then gradually synchronizing the actions and the formulations and the rules and regulations of all of those so that they are in harmony with each other. You hear that word harmony, harmonizing the laws of this nation with another nation, for example, is a good example. So they take the diverse units that exist and they just gradually change the laws, change the culture, change the thinking of the people, until finally they're so close to each other that the day can come and they'll say, well, this is a universal code now, universal law.
Found this video insightful? Hit subscribe, turn the bell on, smash that thumbs up, and dive into the links in the description below. Join our vibrant community to ensure you never miss a video. Your generous support fuels our passion. Thank you for watching. We love you.